Greetings, fellow readers and story lovers, and welcome back to my channel. And also welcomed to the second Sapphic book review in the month of June. I am dressed for the occasion, but you can't actually see it all that well. I am wearing a t-shirt that has the pride flags as the planets. I have done my nails in the lesbian pride flag colors, and I've also tried to do my eyeshadow in the same way. Well, you can't actually tell because I then smudged all the different colors together, but I still like it. And this week's book review will be on Last Night at the Telegraph Club by Malinda Lo. She's not an author I had heard of before, but I've seen the book on several shortlists. Particularly, it was released in 2021, so I've seen it particularly on like lists of Sapphic book releases of 2021, like kind of must reads for 2021. And I thought I would give it a go. Yeah, let me start with the general premise. So this section will be completely spoiler free. I will go into spoilers in the later half, in the latter part of the review, but for now, this will be still completely spoiler free, and I will give spoiler warnings as I go into more spoilery territory. So, the general premise of this book is that it's a historical fiction set in 1950s San Francisco. And the focus of this book is very much a queer, particularly lesbian, coming of age, and combined with Chinese identity or American Chinese identity. The protagonist of the book is Lily Hugh, a 17-year-old senior in high school who is a Chinese American. So her mother and father are both of Chinese heritage. Her father was even born in China, in Shanghai, and her mother was born in America but still has a very clear Chinese heritage. The two strongest points of emphasis in this book are cultural identity. Lily's Chinese American identity is put very much front and center, and sexual identity. It's a queer coming of age story. The protagonist realizes that she is queer. It's never said that she is explicitly a lesbian, but you can kind of make that assumption. Also, by the way, if people are wondering, I also identify as a Sapphic, specifically as a Sapphic asexual. So, just in case you were wondering why I'm reviewing Sapphic books all of a sudden, it's because I also identify as a Sapphic asexual. And the early setup is that Lily doesn't have the language for her attraction to women yet. She particularly feels attracted to masculine energy in women. So in the early stages, it's very much that the reader knows more than she does. Also, in the early chapters, I got the feeling that Lily reads as older than 17. And I wasn't sure if that was intentional or not. It very much could be. She definitely also is the oldest daughter in her family, I think also the oldest child. So, that could be related to that. But it's just something I noticed. So let's move on to the writing style. So some positives that I noticed, it's that it's very descriptive and detailed. So you kind of like get this immediate sense of like you see this through the eyes of the character and you see pretty much every detail of what she is experiencing. There was a very strong use of imagery tied to Lily's interests. So Lily is very interested in space and in science around space travel. And at one point, it's described, the line in the book says, the bowling balls were lined up on the rack like a series of planets. And I really thought that this captured how Lily thinks and how like everything that she sees is kind of filtered through that interest in science and planets and space travel. I also thought, particularly as it comes to the point where she realizes that she's queer, that the narration really captures her internal conflict and the gradual realization that she comes to. Like it's not some whack over the head, it's built up really, really well. And the emotional moments very there are many in this book, and these emotional moments, they land really, really well. Like the ending, maybe slight spoiler warning, but the ending literally had me in tears. And I am still thinking about that ending because it resonated so much with me. And I think this is in large part due to the author's writing style. But I do also have some critiques, some negatives about the writing. Like I said in the beginning, it's very descriptive and detailed. And at some points, I was kind of like, I kind of got the feeling that it's too detailed, it's too like zeroed in on everything. Especially, it's kind of like not zeroed in, it's very much I have to describe everything that is going on, that is happening around the characters, and that kind of felt a little bit overwhelming at times. And it very much contributed to a slow reading experience for me, especially the first half. Like the first half of the book, it took me over 2 weeks. I would say probably a little under 3 weeks, but more between 2 and 3 weeks spent on the first half. And then the second half I read in a couple of days. I will say that this is also partly due to my job. I don't always have time to like sit down and really focus on reading. And when I read the latter half, I had more time to do that. I wouldn't say the first half dragged, but I would say that it's a slower start than it is an ending. But and like I said, the latter half, it really switched to this immersive. Like I was with the characters, I could immerse myself in the reading experience. So it was just the front half that where I would utter this critique. Also, I noticed that there were a lot of street names. Like every time the characters are going somewhere, it's like we're walking up this avenue and we're heading up the stairs to this, and this made me feel a little bit lost. Like I said, it's set in 1950s San Francisco. I have never been to San Francisco, so those street names literally did not mean anything for me. Like, I have no images of those streets. I don't know where in San Francisco they are. I don't even know if they still exist. But I will say that, like, because every time I don't understand something in a book, like, why is this there? I try to like find a reason. And the reason that I could come up with is that it kind of characterizes Lily as someone who is very familiar with her neighborhood. Like she kind of knows this part of her town like the back of her hand. She knows exactly where she's going. So that's kind of like what I would probably say the point was. And maybe it also adds like some realism for people who do know San Francisco. I mean, if you're someone who knows San Francisco and who's read this book, let me know in the comments. But for me, it was kind of like I have no connection to these streets. Why did you put that in? And like I said, these are the two reasons that I could come up with. But I mean, it still didn't really help me get immersed in the story. And also, like tied to this very detailed, descriptive writing style, some of the passages in the book felt a lot like flavor text. Like I didn't really know why they were there. I didn't really know why we needed so much detail. And I frequently found myself thinking, oh, this could have been tightened to a paragraph. This could have been tightened to a couple of sentences. And it dragged out over a page or even multiple pages. But let's move on to for me, one of the strongest points of the book, and that is the characters and relationship dynamics. So, I already said the main character is Lily Hugh, a 17-year-old senior in high school. She has a very relatable internal journey. Like at the beginning, she's very confused about her sexual identity. She has feelings for women, and like she kind of notices that she looks at women differently than people who aren't romantically interested in women. So she notices when there are flashes of exposed skin. She notices, and she kind of compares that sometimes to how men look at women, and she notices a difference, but she can't really tell why that is. I just thought that was very realistic. I think it's something that I've heard a lot of queer people, especially Sapphic women, talk about, and it's something that I definitely also experienced in my earlier years, and like when I was trying to figure out what I identify as and how I fit into the queer community. And one other thing that was particularly relatable, at one point in the book, she kind of like starts looking at her childhood and starts searching for like signs, like, oh, did that mean, or does that mean I've always been this way? Particularly, she watches a nativity play at her church, and her brother plays as shepherd, and she reminisces on how a couple of years ago she also played a shepherd in the nativity play, because the only female role in that entire play is the role of Mary. And so she wanted to be, she definitely wanted to be part of that play. And then the pastor, I think they're called, was kind of like, okay, you can play a shepherdess. And she was really like, no, I'm playing a shepherd. Like really insisting on like playing that male role, even though she is a woman, which is just not something that was done before, and also probably not done since, is kind of the implication. I can also point to several examples in my childhood where, in hindsight, it's very, very clear that I've always been into women. So just very relatable. Also, she has a very strong character arc. She basically goes from people pleasing, especially with her best friend Shirley, who I will also talk about in a minute, to very much like standing up for herself, to the point where I was almost surprised at how firmly she started standing up for herself at the end. But then, like, as I was going through my notes, and like I noted down how her character progressed, it very much made a lot of sense how she is at the end, which, you know, that will come in the spoiler section. And like, I guess a light spoiler here, in at the end she very adamantly refuses to deny her identity. So she's come to the realization that she is queer and that she likes women, and that this is a part of her, and she adamantly denies that. I kept thinking that this was a very brave choice, but also, given the time period, a an unsafe choice. And I found myself thinking, as I was reading, I could even understand if she if she went along with what the other people were expecting of her. Like, it's made very clear what what other people, especially her family, are expecting of her to do, are expecting her to do now. Yeah, I found myself thinking, like, I could even understand if she went the safer route. But no, she very much stood by her own identity and by her own sense of self. So, and I frequently made notes of how it seemed like she was living a double life throughout the novel. So she has her life in Chinatown, where the expectations are very clearly set. What is very is She very much knows what's expected of her, what she's supposed to do. And then she has this life at the Telegraph Club, the titular queer club, queer bar, queer meeting point. And that again is a very realistic depiction of someone who just figures out who they are, and like kind of moves from who they always thought they were going to be, what they know was always expected of them, to who they actually are and who they slowly become. So yeah, I really like that character progression. And like I said, I thought her journey was just very realistic and relatable. So now let's talk about her love interest, Kathleen Miller, or Kath as she is referred to at from the moment that she and Lily become friends. What I noted down is I noticed immediately that they are very compatible. So they're both in advanced math, and they're the only girls in that class. And they both want kind of unconventional futures. So Kath wants to become a pilot, and that is something that's pretty much unheard of at the time period. Like, women aren't pilots. And Lily wants to literally go into rocket science, which I thought was very, like, it's just fun to say that. So I immediately noticed that they had like kind of this compatibility of like they share interests, they share passions. It's they slightly different, like pilot and rocket science, but still like the sentiment behind that is the same. I compared to Lily. Kath is confident about her identity, or she has already figured it out, whereas Lily is still going through that journey. In one of the later chapters, she's literally called a baby butch, which also made very much sense that Lily is attracted to her because, like I said in the beginning, Lily notices that she's very much attracted to masculine energy in women, and then Kath is kind of like has this butch energy, so it immediately made sense that they would be attracted to each other, they would be into each other, and because Kath has already figured out who she is or what her sexual identity is, she acts as both the romantic interest to Lily, but also as her gateway into the queer community. Like she is the one who takes her to the Telegraph Club. Although it's made a very astute, clear point that Lily wants to go to the Telegraph Club and just Kath provides the opportunity. It's not that Kath makes her go, and their relationship just, it was very sweet. It's a strong slow burn, so it's very slow at the beginning. They're friends first, and they instantly like each other. So if you're someone who gets annoyed at the enemies to lovers, rivals to lovers, that's not present in this book. They are friends and they instantly like each other. It's just that they can't immediately be together because of the constraints of the time period. But you very much get the sense that if they had been living in a different time, they would have gotten together probably a little bit sooner, because they are very much instantly very compatible and very much that like they like each other. And from the beginning they have very very cute moments together. Very early on, I think like the first kind of one-on-one outing that they do, they both get to gush about their interests. So like Kath gets to gush about wanting to be a pilot, and Lily gets to gush about being a rocket scientist, and they just support each other. They're both having this moment of like, oh my god, oh, I talked too much, I got too excited, didn't I? And they both kind of went, no, I love hearing you talk about this, and just kind of like hyping each other up. And it was just so cute. And even when they hold hands, it felt very intimate. Like I noted down that holding hands, especially with like romantic, with when there was romantic tension behind that, it felt almost more intimate than their first kiss, because it was just like such strong build up to those, like, are they going to realize it, are they going to get together, and it felt very intimate. And one thing I want to I want to really really stress is consent is handled exceptionally well. So they're like when they get together, when they realize their feelings for each other, and they kiss for the first time, and also kind of like slight spoiler warning, they do get intimate for the first time. They constantly check in with each other. They're constantly like, is this okay, can I go on, and like, oh, do you want this, are you sure? Consent is sexy, and this book proves it. Check in with each other, make sure the other one is on the same page as you. It can be so romantic and cute and sexy. And then after the slow build up, the pacing shifts, and it's very fast after they get together. So we have this rapid escalation of first kiss, then they sneak into a closet at school and kiss again, and then when they find an empty classroom, or they have the opportunity and there's an empty classroom, they get intimate with each other for the first time, and that happens all within a couple of chapters. So we get from slow build up to rapid escalation, just, yeah, very very fast. But it didn't break anything. Like I actually thought it was very well handled and very realistic. Like I said, their relationship, they are just extremely cute and very easy to root for. Like when they got together and they walk home from school together, and they are very acutely aware that they can't show any signs of affection because they're in public, and this is frowned upon to the point of just sanctioned almost. I found myself thinking, like, god, I wish they were living in a different time. I wish they could just be together openly, because I just wanted the best for them. They were so cute together. So let's talk about the supporting characters a little bit. So we have Shirley, who is Lily's best friend and also a Chinese American girl. And very early on, she read to me as a mean girl, and I wasn't sure whether I like her or not, or whether I was even supposed to like her. And I kind of turned out to be right. Like, we're heading into slight spoiler section in case you couldn't tell. In the end, it kind of turns out I was right to not like her, because Lily also distanced herself from her, and at the very end, Shirley breaks off the friendship. So, what she represents is social conformity, or the need to conform to the social norms prevalent at the time, and a fear of queerness. So, even early on, she doesn't want Lily to be friends with Kath, because she kind of fears that Kath will make Lily queer. Like, kind of being queer is sort of on multiple occasions described as contagious. And so once Lily comes out, her friendship with Shirley very quickly deteriorates. And like I said, Shirley breaks off the friendship with Lily and is literally disgusted by her former friend. It kind of like shows the social consequences that being queer had at the time. Then we have Aunt Judy, who is Lily's father's sister. She is kind of possibly coded as an ally. Like, there was a moment that had me wondering whether the aunt knows or suspects that Lily is queer. Like, they have a phone call where Lily tells her aunt about her friendship with Kath, and how they're both in advanced math together, and how they kind of like support each other's interests. And the aunt drops a comment of, I know you won't have any trouble being the only girl in college math classes. And I kind of went like, because she knows that Lily isn't into boys? What's the intention behind that comment? I do think at the end, the possible allyship is a little up for debate. Like, there is a moment at the end where I wasn't really sure if she's still an ally, but that was kind of like the vibe I got from the aunt in the beginning. And of course, we have Lily's parents, who have a strong emotional impact on her, especially her mother, who is very early set up as this woman who has very high and rigid expectations of her daughter. I have to say, this felt a little bit stereotypical, like, oh, the Chinese mother has very high and rigid expectations of her daughter. Really? But it's justified by the end. Like, it serves a narrative purpose. And also, like, Malinda Lo, I she's also a Chinese American, so I feel like that could have been writing from experience instead of playing into stereotypes. And her parents very much represent like cultural expectations, and also a denial. Like, her mother literally, when Lily comes out to her mother, she literally repeats multiple times, there are no homosexuals in this family, are you my daughter? Which, whew, chilling moment. Something that's also very important to keep in mind is that this is a historical fiction, so the historical context plays a huge role. So, kind of like, queerness has to be kept secret. There is this constant fear around being discovered as queer, or even just being thought to be queer. There is like coded behavior and hidden spaces. Like, the Telegraph Club literally functions as such a hidden safe space. And because this is set in the 1950s, this is like at the height of the Cold War. So there are constantly kind of like parallels made between being queer and being a communist. So both are demonized and both have to be hidden. And being a communist kind of like has almost the same consequences as being queer. So, and like I said, this all takes place at the height of the Cold War. So this is very much present. This is very much the political and social reality that the characters live in. There's literally like a like where they simulate a how they simulate what would happen if a bomb if there was a bomb warning. I'm missing the English word right now. So like, that's very much present, but I felt it was mostly happening in the background. Like, I kept waiting for politics to become more come to the forefront, but it's more there to add tension and political realism, and it's not so much a driving force of the plot. And like I said, racial identity plays a very huge role. Like it's pretty much constantly mentioned that Lily is a Chinese American, both by herself, but also by others. Like even at the Telegraph Club, they make several times they make this comment, "Oh, we don't get many Orientals here," which kind of felt a little bit racist to me, but it does pay off later because then it means that the people from the Telegraph Club easily recognize Lily. So and yeah, so like also the queer community plays a pretty big role. I will say that the queer community in this book almost felt otherworldly, which makes sense given that the book is written from Lily's POV and she is literally kind of entering this other world, this new world. So it makes sense that it felt very kind of alienating, but at the same time, it also felt very warm and welcoming. And the people she meets at the Telegraph Club prove to be very helpful and supportive of her and to her at the end. So you get this sense that they have to remain hidden, they have to remain secret, but within the community with each other, they prove to be a very important support network. And Lily has at one point Lily has this moment of realization when she's walking down the street that any woman could be someone who frequents the Telegraph or a similar club. So you're not alone. That was kind of like a very strong moment of like community, even if it has to remain hidden and secret. Like I said, the Telegraph Club is kind of like a threshold space. Like it provides safety, but there's also, because it needs to stay secret, there's also this kind of danger. The characters can be more visible, be more open about their attraction and their feelings than they can in the outside world, but there's still always like I said, it still kind of remains a little bit of coded behavior and not completely open. And what struck me the most almost is the timelessness of queer experience. Like this book is set in the 1950s, but I very frequently felt reminded of my own experience growing up in the late 2000s, early 2010s, and how I experienced realizing that I was queer. And like I said, I related to Lily a lot. And kind of like this book made me question, like, is being queer in the 50s, or was being queer in the 50s, so different to how it is now? So, I mean, most of the stuff that I wrote down for the plot and pacing, I've already talked about. Like, I talked about the slow build up. It takes about 150 pages before they go to the Telegraph Club for the first time. But it has a strong payoff once the narrative fully engages with queer spaces and with queer realization, and with especially like once Lily and Kath get together, the relationship progression feels very natural. Oh, I really like that Lily's first time at the Telegraph Club isn't some huge revelation moment. Like it's still a nice experience, but it's also really foreign and slightly uncomfortable. Like it's out of her comfort zone. So it's completely different to what she expected. And like I said, I just thought that was very realistic. I really appreciated that. Also, there was this moment of like how Lily describes going to the Telegraph Club for the first time afterwards. She says, like Kath kind of describes it to eating chocolate and eating too much chocolate too fast. And then Lily kind of goes like, no, that's not what it feels like. It was like finding water after a drought. She couldn't drink enough, and her thirst made her ashamed, and the shame made her angry. Which testament to the time, but also I feel like could be very relatable to queer people. Like this, oh, this is what it is, and then kind of wanting to experience everything all at once, but still like having this internal shame of, I guess I'm not supposed to be like this. And then the shame making you angry because how can it be wrong? Also, the emotional stakes increase very steadily. The climax, spoiler, I will mention what happens in the climax, and I will go into even more detail a little bit later on. So, be aware. But the climax, which is a police raid of the Telegraph Club, is very well foreshadowed. Like I could tell that this was kind of what was going to happen, but it's still very well built up towards. Also, there are like the book is split into multiple parts, which are each just a couple of chapters long, and the last chapter of each of those parts is written from a different POV. So it's Lily's mother, Lily's father, Lily's aunt. If I remember correctly, I don't know exactly what they were there for, what they added to the story, and there's kind of like a little bit of that what felt like foreshadowing at the beginning. Like Kath gets Lily a fake ID to get into the Telegraph Club because they need to be 21 and they're both 17. And I've always felt like, oh yeah, that's gonna pay off later. It's her fake ID is gonna get discovered either by her parents or at the police raid or something, and then it doesn't happen. That it never happened. Nothing ever happens with her fake ID, and I thought that was kind of like, okay, then why have that build up? Let's talk about the ending now. This is major spoilers. Basically, if you don't want to be spoiled anymore than I have unintentionally already spoiled you, skip to the end of this section. I will put in a time code. But like I said, the events that happen is the Telegraph Club gets raided by the police. Kath gets arrested, and Lily is seen fleeing from the Telegraph Club. So that very quickly leads to rumors spreading through her neighborhood, which leads to her fallout with Shirley, which I already mentioned. And then she kind of decides to come out to her parents because she knows that the rumors will eventually reach her parents, and it's better if they hear that from her. And that is a very very painful scene to read. Like before the coming out, she literally thinks to herself, "You will never look at me like this again." And she's talking about her mother, who at that moment is looking at her with the sharp worry of love. And just like that's such a good last sentence for the chapter, which when the next chapter is that coming out scene, because you just know it's going to be painful and terrible, and her parents are just not going to react well, which they don't. And again, very realistic for the time period and also for the cultural background, or at least what I understand of the cultural background. I mean, in case you couldn't tell, I am very white, so I obviously don't have first-hand experience what it is growing up Chinese in 1950s America, but it from what was set up in the novel, it felt very realistic that her parents reacted that way. And so then as a result of that, she is sent away to live with her aunt, which means that she is pretty much indefinitely separated from Kath, which is one of the like that's like one of the most acute points that she is aware of. Like I will not get to see Kath again. I will not get to speak to Kath. I will not, find out what happened to her. Also, like the reader never learns what happened to Kath. Like it's hinted at, like she got arrested, but because she's a minor, they couldn't hold her for very long. But she's also not allowed to go back home afterwards because obviously her parents, since she got arrested, her parents find out that she was that she was at the Telegraph Club. The reader never finds out for sure what happened. And this ending very much is like every risk that was built up throughout the novel collapses in on both Lily and Kath. Like there are legal consequences, there is social ruin. Like Lily loses her best friend since childhood, and there's the family fallout. Like I said, Lily gets sent away to her aunt to finish high school, and Kath is not allowed to go home. And in the epilogue, you find out that she lives with two other gay girls, so she doesn't really have any family anymore. So this is like very very real social and legal consequences that they had from this. Like this was such a gut punch ending. Like I was so, like I said in the earlier section, I was so rooting for Lily and Kath, and then this ending is just so bleak. And like I understand that it's a realistic ending. It's meant to show the very real consequences of being queer in that era, but it read as so bleak when I was just so rooting for those two characters to be a couple and be happy. And it doesn't really get to that point, which I thought was just, yeah, that's why the ending literally made me cry, because it's just so bleak for the two of them. But we do get an epilogue that is set 1 year later. And in that epilogue, Lily and Kath reunite in San Francisco. They kind of, Lily snuck away from her family and they meet in a bar. You very much get the sense like they, not just the sense, they literally confirm to each other that they are in love with each other. Like they literally say, I love you to each other in that epilogue. But they still have to be very secretive. They can't, be out in the open, which I guess makes the ending a little more hopeful than ending on like they are separated and you don't know if they ever get to see each other again. Because in the epilogue, they literally do get to see each other again, but it's still a very bittersweet ending, even with the epilogue, and it kind of left me emotionally unfulfilled. And I kind of was hoping for a more longer term solution or resolution. I wrote down that I kind of would have wished for an epilogue to be set not just 1 year later, but 5 years later. And instead of, getting this, oh, like we are both in better places and we kind of get to live as who we are as much as possible for the time period, but they aren't really in a position to get back together immediately at that point. So I kind of would have wished for like 5 years later, and Lily has finished college and Kath has got her pilot license, and they move in together or something, which was shown that it was possible at the time for two lesbians to live together. Like they literally show an example of someone from the Telegraph Club where the two women were living together in a one-bedroom apartment. Like I kind of kept waiting for that to kind of like pay off as like, oh, it is possible within confines and constraints, but we don't get there. We get left with this like, yeah, something is possible. It is slightly more hopeful than the end of the last chapter, but I desperately wished for more. But I mean, the book definitely resonated with me, and I mean, I'm still thinking about the ending even 3 days after finishing the book, so it definitely left an impact. Let's move into a conclusion because I've already been talking for 45 minutes and we need to bring this to a close. So I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. It's a strong recommendation from me. It will interest you if you like slow burn romance, if you like queer history, and if you like bittersweet endings. That last one, I'm not so much of a fan of, but the characters and relationship dynamic and the exploration of especially lesbian culture in the 50s really, really do make up for that. And I'm kind of curious to see. I do think I will reread this book, with which has gotten very rare for me these days. But I would be very curious if how the impact changes, or if my opinion on the ending changes if I reread the book. It's a deeply relatable coming of age journey, even if you're not Chinese American. Like I said, I am not, and I found the story very deeply relatable. It's a beautiful relationship dynamic between Lily and Kath. It has a very strong emotional payoff. Like I said, it really resonated with me. It really impacted me. And it's just a very rich exploration of history and the lesbian community in 1950s America, specifically in San Francisco. It does have a slow beginning, and occasionally the writing felt a little bit clunky to me. And like I said, there are some underdeveloped or even slightly unnecessary subplots, and the ending may feel too bittersweet or too open ended. So bear that in mind. But if those things don't bother you, or if you think those things are worth putting up with because of the positives that I mentioned, I really think this book is well worth your read. I had a good time with it. And yeah, the ending literally had me in tears, like I said. Strong recommend from me. And I actually might reread that book. And if anything has changed, I might do a slight update. Maybe. I'm not making any promises. But for now, this is me signing off. Thanks everyone for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, share, and comment down below. And don't forget to hit subscribe if you don't want to miss any of my future videos. I also have a Patreon that you can subscribe to, starting at as little as $2 a month, which gives you early access to any of my videos. Higher tiers include access to exclusive Patreon-only content and the chance to suggest books, plays, or poems for any future analysis. For now, that is it from me, and I'll see you next time.